Did we really manage to do enough good back then? To offset the bad?
Hey guys, my name is Shroomy. I have a lot of different names and I just really like lore. Now that the narrative of Season 3 and everything with Reign of Talon is starting to pick up, we're finally getting to see a couple characters have ongoing plot threads that are happening throughout the entire year. One of these characters is of course Cassidy. So an idea that was brought up last season was Cassidy leaving Overwatch. For a long time, I wasn't really sure if they were going to focus on this or really kind of hone in on it, but seemingly with a couple of the interactions this season and with Overwatch Undivided, we're going to be focusing on that, and that's going to be a highlight of Cassidy's character for this year. This is a pretty big deal because if you had asked me at the beginning of the year, I probably would have said no, but after everything that happened with the comic last season, Crossroads, it does look like Cassidy is going to be leaving Overwatch, which is a pretty big deal. We'll be explaining all of that and kind of giving a small recap on how we got here for people who don't know, because Cassidy's past with Overwatch is pretty deep. Anyways, if you like this kind of thing, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's a couple small character things that I want to highlight this season, and of course, talk about the new character Shion, but we're going to be saving that for a video down the road, or when this goes up, it might already happen. Who knows? I have a lot of ideas for the story this season that I do want to talk about, but I also have a lot of videos I want to make, so don't forget to like and subscribe, like I said. Anyways, let's get into it by talking about how exactly Cassidy got to this point in his life. Because, well, it's a little complicated, to say the least. So, for those who don't know, Cassidy really started with Overwatch back when he was in his later teenage years. Here, he was working with the Deadlock Gang and they were doing a heist, and Overwatch came to stop them. Overwatch and the Deadlock Gang were pretty much going back to back to each other, just fighting, and eventually, the gang decided to flee. To make sure everyone could escape, Cassidy stayed behind, causing a distraction and letting everyone else get out. Here, Cassidy was caught, and he would have gone straight to prison, but Gabriel Reyes had other ideas for him. Gabriel Reyes was Reaper, of course, but also the leader of Blackwatch at the time. He saw a lot of potential in Cassidy and decided to take him under his wing. Now, after this, Cassidy kind of viewed everything very differently. At first, he thought the gang would come for him, but as time went on, he slowly came to the realization that they were gone, and they probably moved on, and he had to as well. So, he slowly became accustomed to everything with Overwatch, and started to become a real member of the team. Of course, this would lead to things like Retribution down the road, which was the Overwatch PvE mission, but that was towards the fall of Overwatch. There was a little bit of time where Cassidy was generally a pretty good Blackwatch agent and really just worked well with everybody else on the team. Around this time, Cassidy and Genji got pretty close as two people who weren't ready to open up to each other were, kind of like a really good duo. That's something I want to highlight as well here too, because that is important to the Season 3 narrative. But as things go on and the fall of Overwatch happens, Cassidy decides to kind of go off on his own, and he became a bounty hunter for a long time. And then, eventually, he reunited with the gang in his animated short. After his little skirmish with Ash, Bob, the triplets, and Bars, he gets away, and awakens Echo, and of course, everything from there. He then goes on to recruit some new characters for the New Blood team, which would go on to join Overwatch. He of course got the recall as well, and this is around the time I wasn't sure if he was going to fully join or just be a recruiter, but he ended up joining. Now, we're going to skip ahead a little bit because a lot of this backstory isn't really important for, well, Cassidy in particular. It's more of just like plot points that he's been involved in. So we're going to move ahead to today. In the Talon era of the Overwatch story, where Talon's kind of in control of everything and really starting to reign, some might say, we got a comic in Season 2 that's called Crossroads. Here, it takes place during Grand Mesa's attack and heist, and we can see Ash and Bars, Bob, and a couple of the other Deadlock gang who we hadn't gotten pictures of before, but we do now, get to re-meet. Here, Cassidy gets hit with a pretty crazy bombshell. The gang never stopped looking for him, especially Ash. So, we get to see some flashbacks here, and it does show that the gang pretty desperately was always searching for him. Just when they would find where he is, he would have been moved, and eventually, they had to move on. Not because they wanted to, but because, well, they just had to give up. They thought he was gone, and they could never truly find him. By the time that they figured out where he was and everything, they saw he was a member of Overwatch, and they thought he had abandoned them. This was a pretty big realization to Cassidy, who rationalized a lot of basically his internal struggles with the gang, more so as a thing of just like they abandoned him. So hearing they didn't and he abandoned them in turn was a pretty big, well, moment. So I wasn't sure if they were going to focus on this. I thought this would be like an overarching or side thread that we might pick up on years down the road, or maybe have Cassidy kind of come back to this idea every once in a while. But at the end of Crossroads, he really debates what he's going to do next, because he doesn't like how things were left with the gang. Now, ever since Crossroads, we've been getting more and more little Cassidy interactions talking about how he's not really sure where he fits. A big key of all this is in an interaction and in a couple moments talking to Sojourn and Undivided, he talks about how Gabriel Reyes always wanted him to be in Overwatch. Now that Gabe's gone, he isn't sure if he wants to follow that legacy specifically, or if he wants to make his own path. He isn't sure if this is the path chosen for him, and everything with the gang, plus all of this, really just adds all of it together. That leads us to, of course, everything in Season 3. Genji has gone to Japan, and Cassidy and a couple other members of Overwatch have chased after him. There's a couple important interactions that happen this season, but I want to highlight it with this one, about Cassidy and how he's feeling about everything.
You have been acting strangely since returning from Grand Mesa.
Yeah. That old friend I ran into, she gave me a lot to think about.
I see. Are you going to leave, Cassidy?
Let's save it for after this mission.
This interaction with Cassidy and Echo is pretty crazy. It seems to set up that he is going to be leaving at some point in the future. Like I was saying before, he doesn't want to follow in the legacy of Gabe, and he wants to find his own path. As well, he really does want to make amends, or at least get on better terms with the gang. They were his original family after all, after everything, and he does want to be with them to a sense. I'm not sure if he would fully rejoin them or anything, because he's kind of left that life behind him, but maybe he does work with them one last time, trying to see how things go, or maybe this is going to be an ongoing plot thread where we see Cassidy kind of doing his own thing in the corner, trying to make amends. This comes back to the idea that would Ash and the gang even want him to come back? Well, as we can see in Crossroads, Ash in particular definitely has a lot of feelings about this. She seemed extremely angry at him and has a lot of resentment towards him because of everything that happened in the past, and I'm not really sure how he would even start mending that bridge. The rest of the gang seems to be on pretty good terms with him, well, aside from Bars, who I think is also really mad at him, but Bob and a couple of the other founding members really don't seem that affected by him. Now, where that plotline could go in the future, I am really curious. I do want to see Ash and Cassidy at least get to a point where they don't hate each other anymore, especially Ash. I would really like it if they got to a point where they can at least be kind of friends, or at least acquaintances again. I'm unsure if Ash would ever really open up and allow Cassidy back into, well, anything with her family like that, but yeah. Another thing to point out as well is, Cassidy isn't the only member that might be leaving Overwatch. Of course, with this season, Genji has been having a lot of important character moments. Specifically, he talks a lot about how he's homesick, and how going to Japan was the right decision for him. I wouldn't be surprised if Genji and Cassidy, since they are two mirrors of each other in a way, go away from Overwatch. Maybe they both go on their own separate paths, and there is an idea for where I think all of this could be leading. Because there's one character they're obviously connected to who we haven't heard about in a while. I think there's a really good chance they could be going after Gabriel Reyes, aka Reaper, and that's how we get this back into the story. Now, I'm not exactly sure why they would both go to find Gabe. Right now, my train of thought is maybe they want to go back to him to get some resolution to how everything with the Retribution Gang, aka Blackwatch, went back in the day. Or maybe they just need to for a conclusion in general, especially Cassidy. Cassidy has this really focus recently on being in Gabe's shadow or following in Gabe's footsteps, and he's not sure if he wants to be that person. So meeting with Gabe and confronting Reaper and how he is today seems like the conclusion or the natural resolution to this narrative in some way. The best way you could go about that would probably be either A, finding Jack Morrison and working with Soldier to find him, maybe that's how we get Cassidy in the conspiracy storyline, or B, maybe we just see Cassidy go off on his own. We could see him just do this on his own, in his own little corner, trying to find Gabe, and maybe Genji just stays in Japan. Maybe Genji isn't even involved here, and maybe he just supports Cassidy because he understands what he's going through. Those are just two ideas for where that plotline could be going, I think Cassidy's story in the background of all this has been really interesting this season. There's also another interaction I want to bring up between Cassidy and Baptiste that's kind of an ongoing thing as well. Mainly how Cassidy is the only person in Overwatch who knows that Baptiste worked with Talon in the past.
When exactly are you planning to come clean to the others that you're ex-Talon?
You may be forgetting that the last time someone found out, he tried to kill me.
That was me. But Vivian's got her head on straight. She'd understand.
I'll think about it.
This interaction as well is obviously going to have some kind of resolution in the future. They've set up the Baptiste being in Talon thing and how the team will react so many times. I would be disappointed if they didn't have Cassidy involved in that moment in some way. So maybe Cassidy is going to side with Baptiste when this happens, and while the team is mad at him, Cassidy, of course, is going to completely understand. Cassidy is in a really great position to get a ton of character development this year. The Crossroads comic set up so much for him in a really interesting way. I'm kind of surprised that we're actually focusing on Cassidy again with everything else going on, but it is a really welcome change of pace. Cassidy kind of needed a story arc for a while. He's kind of just been a guy hanging out inside of everything going on with Overwatch. So yeah, I would be amiss to not mention how Cassidy is currently in Tokyo at the time of me recording this in Season 3. So he's hanging out with Genji, and he's also in a place where he's away from Overwatch, fighting against the Hashimoto and, of course, Talon. So maybe he's going to have a moment here where it sets him on that path to find Gabe, or just leave completely. That's something I forgot to mention before, but it's probably going to be where we start seeing this fully kick off. I'm curious if we get another Cassidy-focused lore drop this season then, or maybe we get Cassidy stuff next season with everything going on with, well, whatever happens next season. I want to make this video to kind of bring attention to how Cassidy's going to be leaving. I think that's pretty obvious at this point, but what do you guys think? Where do you think Cassidy's character should go in the future? There's a lot of avenues for this and a lot of ideas going around, so I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this as well. Anyways, that's all from me. We have a lot of really cool videos coming down the road, like I said before. Specifically, I am so excited to talk about Shion. It's been a long time coming, and I can't wait for you guys to see that video whenever it's out. Or, hey, maybe it's out by now. I'm not exactly sure. Anyways, that's all from me, and where do you guys think Cassidy is going to go? Let me know down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!